In just the past few days, grocery bills for millions of American families have quietly jumped by tens of dollars. And it's not because you're buying more. It's because new import tariffs of 15% to 50% have officially kicked in, hitting everything from your weekly coffee and cuts of meat to blocks of cheese, bottles of olive oil, and bags of frozen seafood. The scary part: this is only the beginning. Once old inventory runs out, prices are set to spike, potentially doubling within weeks, even at Walmart, Costco, and Target. And some of the items you assumed were safe will actually be the first to vanish from store shelves.
From the produce aisle to meat, fish, and dairy. This morning, new transparency from some stores about how tariffs are impacting your grocery bill. Another tip to avoid tariff price hikes: experts say stock up now on imported wine, spirits, and coffee, canned goods like sodas, and imported meat and seafood. Buy it fresh and you can freeze it for up to several months.
In this video, we'll run through 5 foods you should stock up on now, before this price storm wipes out every chance to save. Stick around until the end, because number 2 alone could add an extra $100 to your monthly bill if you skip it. Number 1. Coffee. If your mornings start with a hot cup of coffee, this news might have you checking your pantry right away. In just 72 hours since the new import tariffs took effect, the price of coffee from Brazil, Colombia, and Ethiopia has already been adjusted upward by importers. Not by a few cents, but by an average of 15% to 25% on the very first shipment after the tariffs. And this is just the initial reaction. What many don't realize is that coffee isn't a product you can easily switch to domestic. The US grows a very small amount in Hawaii and Puerto Rico, but this covers less than 1% of national demand. That means almost every coffee bean you drink each day is imported. Picture yourself standing in your usual supermarket. The coffee shelves are still full, your favorite brands are still there. But when you look down at the price tag, the numbers have crept up. No sign explaining it, no announcement from the store. The new price has been quietly baked into every bag, and shoppers only notice when they swipe their card at checkout. Why has the price jumped so quickly? Coffee supply chains have already been under strain since the pandemic, when container shipping rates from South America to the US tripled compared to pre-pandemic levels. Now, with new import tariffs, every pound of coffee carries a significant extra cost before even reaching US soil. Importers have no choice but to raise prices to survive, and retailers, including Walmart, Costco, and Target, can't fully absorb these costs. There's another factor: few pay attention to coffee is sold under futures contracts. This means the price you see today may have been locked in months ago. Once these old contracts expire, the new prices will fully reflect the impact of the tariffs. That's when the real shock will hit. Experts warn that within the next 2 to 3 months, the price of a pound of Arabica coffee could climb another 30% to 50% if no countermeasures are taken. Let's do a little math. The average American household consumes about 3 pounds of coffee a month. If prices go up 30%, that's an extra $6 to $8 per month just for coffee. It might sound small, but over a year, that's more than $100. And that's just one product. Add in rising costs for meat, oil, seafood, and the family budget changes entirely. But it's not all bad news. For savvy shoppers, there's still a way to lock in coffee prices for the coming months. Whole bean or ground coffee, if stored in an airtight container in a cool, dry place, can keep its flavor for up to 12 months. Even coffee pods for single-serve machines have a long shelf life. That means buying a reasonable stock now could help you dodge the incoming price wave. Some people may switch to instant coffee to save money. But remember, instant coffee usually uses lower-grade beans. And if you're used to fresh coffee, you'll notice the difference. Also, the instant coffee market isn't immune to tariff impacts. Its raw material is still imported coffee beans. Here's another thing to watch for when prices rise. Many producers use shrinkflation instead of a direct price hike. A 16-ounce bag might quietly become 14 or even 12 ounces, while the price tag stays the same. This is a sneaky way of raising prices that most consumers only catch when comparing closely. The question is, will you wait until the full price hike kicks in, or take advantage of this short window to stock up? If you think you have time, remember that large supermarkets turn over inventory quickly, and 1 or 2 weeks is often all it takes for the new shipments to replace the old ones entirely. Coffee isn't just a drink. For many, it's a morning ritual, a moment that starts the day. When coffee prices climb, it doesn't just affect your wallet. It touches a part of your daily rhythm. Losing the ability to buy your usual coffee means changing habits, something most people would rather avoid. You might skip dessert, switch cooking oil brands, or cut back on seafood at dinner. But with coffee, any change is immediately noticeable. And if you wait until prices double before acting, your only option might be to cut back or give it up entirely. So imagine walking into the store tomorrow and seeing your favorite coffee suddenly a few dollars more. Will you pay the higher price? Or wish you had grabbed a few extra bags last week? The answer might shape your grocery bill next month. And if coffee, something so ordinary, can change this fast, you'll want to see which item on this list is even more at risk. Number 2. Fresh meat. Have you ever stood in front of the meat counter and felt like you were looking at a gas price board? A number that changes constantly, only upward. This time it's not because of a holiday season or temporary shortages, but a direct result of the newly implemented import tariffs. Not all meat in the US is imported, but a significant portion comes from sources such as Australia, New Zealand, Brazil, and Argentina, especially high-quality beef and lamb. When these shipments are hit with an extra 15% to 35%, tariff retail prices are forced to adjust. And because the meat market is interconnected, rising imported meat prices inevitably pull domestic meat prices up as well. Imagine the chain reaction: importers send updated prices to distributors, distributors send revised price sheets to supermarkets, and overnight the tags on the meat counter change. Worse yet, the timing coincides with summer, BBQ season, when demand for beef and pork surges nationwide. Strong demand plus new tariffs is the perfect recipe for rapid price hikes. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, 1/3 of the beef consumed in certain coastal states is imported. In those states, average prices have already increased by 50 cents to $1 per pound in just the first week after tariffs took effect. And that figure doesn't reflect the full impact yet, since many retailers are temporarily holding the line by sacrificing profit margins, a strategy they can't sustain for long. It's not just prices that are shifting, weights are too. Some stores have started packaging smaller cuts of meat at the same price to avoid shocking customers. At first glance, a tray of meat still costs $12.99, but if you weigh it carefully, you'll find it contains a few ounces less. This is the shrinkflation tactic that consumers often only notice after they get home. Adding to the pain, promotions are disappearing. The days of buy one get one free or weekend discounts are becoming rare as retailers avoid selling at a loss. Families who rely on these sales to stock up on meat will feel the squeeze most. So is there a solution? Yes, but it's not simple. Some people are returning to the old habit of buying whole cuts directly from slaughterhouses or farms, then portioning and freezing them. This can save 10% to 20% compared to buying prepackaged trays, but it requires a large freezer and the ability to pay upfront for bulk purchases. Another option is to switch to meats less affected by tariffs, such as domestically produced chicken. However, if chicken demand spikes as consumers make the switch, chicken prices could also rise. A price spiral we've seen happen with other products before. Timing is key. Imported shipments subject to the new tariffs will gradually replace older stock within 2 to 4 weeks. This short window is the opportunity to buy at pre-tariff prices. After that, the new price level will set in and likely won't come down unless policy changes. And don't overlook the psychological factor. When meat, one of the cornerstone items of the American dinner table, gets more expensive, consumers cut other spending to compensate. This creates ripple effects across the entire retail economy, from grocery stores to restaurants. If you lived through the beef price spike of 2014, you'll remember walking into a supermarket and weighing every meat purchase carefully. This time, that scenario could unfold faster because tariffs are pushing up costs right from the start. So what will you do when the price of your favorite tray of meat jumps by $5 in just 1 week? Will you accept the new price or change your shopping habits? The answer will shape not only this week's dinner, but also how you cope with the next round of price shocks. And if meat, something the US still produces domestically, can be this affected, you'll want to know what's happening to products that are almost 100% imported. The next item on the list is a perfect example. Number 3, imported cheese and dairy products. Picture this. You're at the Costco checkout. In your cart are just a few familiar items: a carton of milk, a pack of butter, a block of Gouda cheese, and some bread. Yet when the receipt prints out, the total is more than $12 higher than last week. You look closely and realize the cheese alone has gone up by nearly $4, and the imported milk from Canada has jumped in price by almost 20%. This is no coincidence. In less than a week since the new import tariffs took effect, dairy products from Europe and Canada have become the center of price volatility. Here's the paradox. While the US produces plenty of milk, there are still countless products that American consumers can hardly find domestic equivalents for. From France's creamy brie to Italy's crumbly, nutty Parmigiano. The reason isn't just about taste. Certain premium cheeses require specific cattle breeds, diets, climates, and strict traditional aging processes. For example, Parmigiano Reggiano must be aged in the dry, cool climate unique to Italy's Emilia-Romagna region, and each wheel takes up to 24 months to mature. These are factors that large-scale domestic production struggles to replicate perfectly. And because the US can't fully replace these imports, it relies heavily on foreign supply. When the new 15% to 35% tariffs hit these products, a price shock was inevitable. In fact, many stores are quietly using the shrink the product. Keep the price tactic. A pack of Gouda that used to be 8 ounces is now only 6 ounces with the same price tag. This is a form of hidden price increase that buyers only notice when they compare carefully. The story doesn't end at retail prices. Some distributors are already planning to cut their orders, especially for cheeses hit with the highest tariffs. The risk is that some familiar brands may disappear from shelves in the coming months. As supply tightens, the market will drive up the prices of what's left, turning cheese into a luxury for many households. The problem is made worse by logistics costs. Imported cheese requires refrigerated transport, and the cost of a refrigerated container from Europe to the US is now about 20% higher than last year. Add the new tariffs on top, and the total price increase can exceed 30% in just one import cycle. Some savvy shoppers are taking advantage of the situation to get ahead. Smaller, more agile stores are stocking up on pre-tariff inventory to sell to regular customers at old prices. This is the golden window for consumers buy, while old stock products are still in storage. But this window will close quickly as import contracts are typically signed quarterly, and when the new shipments arrive, the new prices will be applied across the board. There are temporary solutions. Hard cheeses like Parmigiano or Grana Padano can be stored for up to 12 months if tightly wrapped and kept cold. Buying a reasonable stock now could let you lock in current prices for months. On the other hand, fresh cheeses like mozzarella or burrata have short shelf lives, making them suitable only for immediate use. But this isn't just about money. Imagine a weekend family dinner steaming pasta with rich sauce, but no sprinkling of Parmigiano on top. You could substitute domestic cheese, but the flavor wouldn't be the same, and that feeling of something's missing would always linger. It's a subtle yet profound impact on eating habits, one that money can't easily restore. The real question here isn't how much will prices rise, but what will you do before everything changes completely? Waiting means accepting the loss of both flavor and choice. And if something as secondary as cheese can cause such upheaval, what happens when it's a key cooking ingredient? In the next section, we'll talk about a type of cooking oil many assume is safe, but in reality, it's at the very heart of the new wave of price hikes. Number 4, olive oil. A few months ago, international headlines were buzzing about a historic drought in Spain and Italy. Most Americans barely glanced at the story. But now, walking into Walmart or Target, picking up a familiar bottle of olive oil and seeing the price jump by $4, $5, they're finally connecting the dots. Spain, Italy, and Greece account for over 60% of the world's olive oil exports. Spain alone saw production drop nearly 50% last year due to relentless heat waves and drought. As global supply tightened, the price of raw olive oil surged in late 2024, and now the second blow. America's new import tariffs is sending retail prices to record highs. Olive oil isn't considered a luxury in many US households. It's seen as a healthy, everyday staple for cooking. A price hike here means an across-the-board rise in meal costs, especially for those on a Mediterranean diet or families cooking at home to save money. With the new tariffs, every gallon of olive oil imported from Europe now costs 20–30% more the moment it hits the port. That triggers a domino effect. Importers raise wholesale prices, retailers raise shelf prices, and consumers end up paying more for the exact same bottle. Some brands have quietly shrunk bottle sizes, from 1 liter down to 750 milliliters, while keeping the same price tag, leaving customers to realize the change only after they get home. But tariffs aren't the whole story. Global olive oil reserves are low, and competition for quality supply is fierce. Major markets like the US, Japan, and Canada are bidding against each other, pushing producers to prioritize buyers willing to pay the highest price. In this climate, American supermarkets struggle to keep promotions going, and shoppers lose out on deal-hunting opportunities they once relied on. The impact doesn't stop at pure olive oil. Processed foods, from salad dressings and pasta sauces to canned meals, are all feeling the squeeze since olive oil is a core ingredient. That means you're paying more not just when you buy the oil itself, but every time you buy something made with it. Still, there are ways to adapt. Some households are buying olive oil in bulk, directly from wholesale suppliers or farmers markets, and bottling it themselves, saving 10–15% compared to retail. Others are stretching their supply by blending olive oil with canola or sunflower oil for everyday cooking, while reserving pure olive oil for dishes where flavor matters most. But every strategy has its limit. If olive oil prices continue to rise over the next 3 to 6 months, a real possibility given Mediterranean production isn't bouncing back yet, even these cost-cutting tricks will start to hurt. At that point, those who stocked up early will be sitting on a serious advantage. Picture this. It's the middle of winter, and you open your pantry to find rows of olive oil bottles bought at old prices. Every time you cook, you enjoy the flavor knowing you dodged a 40% price hike. That's not just saving money, it's being one step ahead of the market. But here's the bigger takeaway when olive oil, a key imported staple, sees this kind of price shock. It's a warning sign. Any food heavily dependent on foreign supply could be next. And our final item fits that description perfectly. It's something many American families keep stocked year-round, but soon getting it at a reasonable price might become a luxury. Number 5. Frozen seafood. One weekend evening, you open the freezer looking for a bag of shrimp to make your favorite pasta. But when you go to the supermarket, that familiar bag of frozen shrimp is now $6 more than the last time you bought it. In fact, some types of imported salmon that used to fill the shelves are now reduced to just a few lonely trays with prices jumping over 30%. What's happening isn't just simple inflation. Frozen seafood in the US relies heavily on imported supplies: shrimp from Ecuador and India, salmon from Norway, and chili cod from Canada. When the new tariffs hit imported goods, prices shot up immediately. And because these foods require a cold supply chain from catch to consumer, the cost increases are even more noticeable. For many families, frozen seafood isn't a luxury, but a way to maintain a healthy diet rich in protein and omega-3s. However, with tariffs rising from 15% to 35% on each container, every pound of seafood ends up costing $3, $7 more than before. In some coastal states, where residents are used to buying frozen salmon or shrimp weekly, this shock hits household budgets directly. It's not just about higher prices. Product variety is starting to shrink. Some importers have announced reduced orders to avoid holding expensive inventory. This means specialty seafoods, like North Atlantic cod or Hokkaido scallops, may disappear from shelves in the near future. For consumers, losing these choices isn't just losing flavors, it's losing part of the culinary habits tied to memories and culture. The impact reaches further when restaurants and food chains that depend on frozen seafood are forced to raise menu prices to cover costs. Eating out becomes more expensive, causing customers to cut back and triggering ripple effects throughout the service industry. On the other hand, not everyone is giving up. Some families are hunting for deals during supermarket clear-out events, when stores need to free up freezer space for new shipments. This can be a chance to buy seafood at better prices before the full impact of the new pricing hits. Others are turning to local fish markets or buying directly from fishermen. While not always cheaper, this avoids the tariff cost on imports. Still, these solutions are only temporary. If the global cold supply chain remains tight and tariffs stay high, frozen seafood prices are unlikely to return to previous levels anytime soon. In fact, with climate change affecting catches in many regions, supply could shrink further, pushing prices even higher. The key now is to be proactive about timing your purchases. If your family regularly eats seafood, now is the time to stock a reasonable amount in your freezer to ensure a stable food supply for the next few months. This not only saves money, but also reduces stress if prices keep climbing. But frozen seafood is more than just one product getting more expensive. It's a signal of a bigger reality. Any item heavily dependent on imports and cold storage is vulnerable to tariff changes and weather disruptions. This raises a big question for every household. Are we truly prepared for a volatile food market? And with that, our list of 5 must-stock items comes to a close. But the effects of new tariff policies and global disruptions on American dinner tables are far from over. The question is, will you stand by and watch prices rise week after week, or act now while there's still a chance? These 5 foods, coffee, fresh meat, imported cheese, olive oil, and frozen seafood, are all under the double pressure of new tariffs and global volatility. Every week you delay could mean paying more for the same product. And it's not just about money. It's about changing eating habits, even losing long familiar choices in the American kitchen. Be proactive in stocking up on essentials, so you're not caught off guard by price hikes or shortages. Acting early today will help keep your meals stable tomorrow.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.